Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and this weekend, 30 Minutes is paying honor to the life and legacy of Dr. King. This week's program features a speech from the 2020 Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration and Breakfast at UT Martin from Vice Chancellor of Access and Engagement, Dr. Mark McLeod. Then we'll hear the complete I Have a Dream speech from Dr. King from August 28, 1963 in Washington, D.C. We'll end our program with the song Lift Every Voice and Sing from the 2020 Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration at UT Martin. We hope you enjoy today's program.
It is a pleasure to be here on today as we come together to share the experience and honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was noted for having a dream that's deeply rooted in the American dream, a dream of a country where men were not judged by their countenance, but by their character. But what's most significant about a dream is a light that illuminates the quickest pathway to one's success. But far too many times we take people's dreams and we change them based upon their situation when we need to be changing their situation based upon their dreams. So today I want to share just a few things that we can do as a community to help people with their dreams. Respect, responsibility, and right choices. We often talk about equity and diversity and inclusion and social justice, but what it really boils down to is respect. Respecting people for their differences, for their different political affiliations, for their different sexual orientation, just respect. I remember being in Mr. Thompson's 7th grade history class. A couple of things I remember about that class. Number one, Natasha Johnson, who sat next to me, the cutest girl in class who didn't know I existed. But I do remember Mr. Thompson saying something like, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal with certain inalienable rights, endowed them by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And basically that's respecting people's right to live and to exist and to understand. Man, respect. Last summer I went to a conference and an elderly gentleman walked past me. I offered him my seat. I saw a veteran's hat on and I said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service," as I often do when I see our military and veterans. But his response to me was something I never heard before. I said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service." He said, "You were worth it. You were worth it." I thought for a moment, this elderly white gentleman who fought a war on the other side of the world so a little brown boy from Birmingham could live out his dreams. He said, "I was worth it." So we have to have respect for those who came before us because we stand on their shoulders. And we have to have respect for future generations because they will stand on ours. Respect, responsibility, and right choices. We hold titles. We have credentials. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're teachers, we're ministers, we're a part of civic organizations. But it's deeper than our titles. It's our responsibility. It's for us to leave those organizations better than the way we found them. It's for us to be change agents and bring about changes and help those who can't help themselves, being responsible. When I was a new parent, I remember the dreaded school list. 10 packs of loose leaf paper, 4 boxes of crayons, 2 packs of markers, and 153 glue sticks. And I used to wonder, why do we have to buy all these supplies? But later I understood, all the parents don't get all the supplies. And if the parents who didn't get the supplies, some of the students would go without. So I had no problem with that because we are a brother's keeper. No one man is an island. No one stands alone. Each man is my brother. Each man is my own. And even gospel great Mahalia Jackson said, if I can help somebody as I travel along, if I can cheer somebody with a word or a song, if I can help somebody who's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. We need to live a life that's driven by purpose. And believe it or not, from the youngest to the oldest, somebody wants to be just like you. So you owe it to them to be better mentors, to be better role models, and be that example so that they can help fulfill their dreams. Respect, responsibility, and right choices. Far too many times in our country and even in our community, we make too big of an issue of black versus white, of rich versus poor, of Democrat versus Republican. But guess what? The real issue is right versus wrong. And if it's not right, it's probably wrong. And there's no wrong time to do the right thing. Loving thy neighbor as thyself is right. Thy black neighbor, thy white neighbor, thy Hispanic neighbor, Latina, Asian, gay, straight, loving thy neighbor as thyself is right. Being able to be an advocate for those who don't have a voice is right. Being able to understand other people's situation is right. And even if someone is having a difficult time, meeting them with a warm smile, a pat on the back, a fist bump, an encouraging word, a warm hug, or picking up the phone to call and check on them when they're going through a difficult time is right, because your words, your smile might be the one thing that helps them live to fight another day. As I close, I want to share a story. And those who know me, it's a familiar story. Story of two young men and their efforts to deceive an old blind wise man. These two young men were like Gerard and Devin. And it was an old wise man like David Below. And so these young men sought out to deceive him. They said, we're going to catch us a bird. And we're going to find this wise man. We're going to ask the wise man, is the bird dead or is it alive? And these young men decided that if the wise man should say the bird is alive, they crush it and kill it. They said if the bird was dead, they'd open their hands and let it fly away. So these young men caught the bird. They found the wise man down by an old oak tree by a riverbank. And they say, wise man, great wise man, in our hand, we have a bird. Is the bird dead or is it alive? The wise man thought, he pondered for just a moment, and he said, my sons, it's in your hands. And he walked away. So what I'm saying today, Chancellor Carver, the dreams of thousands of people are in your hands. What I'm saying, Mayor Brundage, the hopes of a community are in your hands. What I'm saying, Gerard and Devin, the future is up in your hands. What I'm saying to everybody in this room, the dreams of a nation are in our hands. We can help nurture those dreams, or we can crush them and kill them. But we have to make a decision. My time is up, and I thank you so much for yours.
Happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until that is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must therefore conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. As we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied. As long as our body is heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, "My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. And so let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
You've been listening to 30 Minutes, a community affairs program on Thunderbolt Radio. You can listen to this broadcast and others anytime by visiting thunderboltradio.com and following the Thunderbolt Radio and Digital YouTube page. Thanks for listening.